G'day ladies and gentlemen, how y'all doing? Scotty49 here with you once again for another installment in the Warhammer 40,000 for the New Guys series. Now in this series we've already started talking about the various factions in Warhammer 40,000, talking about their positions and place in their lore in the galaxy, as well as talking about how to best start them, the pros and cons for them, and their main core rules. And today we're going to be finishing off looking at the Necrons with the Necrons next steps and how you can expand from the starting the army options that we talked about in our previous video. But before we get into today's video, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everyone that has subscribed onto the channel so far. And if you haven't done so already, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below as well. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into it. Alrighty everyone, so this video is a direct follow-on from the starting the army video that we've already done for the Necrons, and this is called the Next Steps, where I'm going to look at 3 different options that you can add on to each of your starting the army options to take your army from that combat patrol level up to that incursion level of about 1,000 points to start getting a larger army, playing larger games. And so again, each of these 3 next step options are going to be around 250 Australian dollars, and combined with the starting the army options, the goal here is to have it less than $500 Australian. And remember, anytime I mention monetary value in any of these videos, I am talking in Australian dollars. And so we're going to jump into the first next step option for the Necrons, which is a direct follow-on from the combat patrol. Now for this option, I have selected 4 different kits that directly follow on the start of the army that you have already got from that combat patrol. And these 4 kits that we are adding are the Technomancer, 5 Immortals / Death Marks, 5 Lichguard / Triarch Praetorians, and a Satan Shard of the Nightbringer. Now, the cost of this option is $55 for the Technomancer, $61 for the 5 Immortals / Deathmark kit, $66 for the 5 Lichguard / Triarch Praetorian kit, and $62 for the Satan Shard of the Nightbringer, coming to a total of $244. Now, depending on how you assemble the Immortals and the Deathmarks, as well as the Lichguard and the Triarch Praetorians, these kits and the options within them, depending on how you build them, can come to a maximum of 595 points to be added onto that combat patrol. This option has got several pros for when you are adding it on to the combat patrol that you have started off with. The first one is that it adds much needed close combat ability to the combat patrol in the form of the Lichguard or Triarch Praetorians as well, quite possibly, and the Nightbringer. It also gives you an additional HQ and troops choice if you choose to build the Immortal / Deathmark box as Immortals instead of Deathmarks. So you have those 3 troop choices to be able to build out a legal battalion to use for your incursion level games, giving you access to more elites, more fast attack, and more heavy support slots than what a combat patrol detachment would give you. However, the only con that I see for this option that we haven't previously mentioned for the combat patrol is that you are limited to building the Immortals out of the Immortal and Deathmark kit to be able to use them as a troop choice for a legal battalion detachment if you wish to do so. Now, if you did build the 2 previous units of 5 Immortals out of the combat patrol, you can still run the army as a patrol detachment at 1,000 points. You're just not going to be able to take as many of the options as you would probably have available at this point. This option adds directly onto the combat patrol's maximum points of 540 points to give you a total of 1,135 points to be able to use in your incursion level games. So this gives you some options in terms of what units you take, particularly if you're taking Lichguard, for example. They're 125 points for a unit of 5 currently under the Nephilim mission pack. So that means that you can drop those out and maybe drop some upgrades off the Tomb Blades, for example, and get under 1,000 points there. That's just one way of doing it, for example. Cost-wise, the total for getting this option as well as the Combat Patrol comes to a total of $454. So you're getting well more than 2 points per dollar that you actually spend here. Now, overall, I believe this is the best combination of kits that you can add onto the Combat Patrol to make up for some of the areas that the Combat Patrol itself does lack in that combat potential, and having some tougher units, particularly in the Nightbringer and the Lich Guard, onto the table, as well as that second HQ to be able to take you up to that incursion level games using battalion detachments if you wish to do so. However, we're going to jump into the second option, which is the option that goes with the instead of option 1, and this is the next steps for it. So for this option, I've picked 3 different kits that are best suited to add on to the Recruit and the Elite editions that you have already picked up for your Necrons. And these kits are 10 Warriors with 3 Scarab Swarms in the same kit, a Ghost Ark / Doomsday Ark kit, because you can make either out of them, as well as 3 Locust Destroyers. Now, the cost of these kits is $77 for the 10 Necron Warriors with the 3 Scarab Swarms, $83 for the Ghost Ark / Doomsday Ark kit, and $90 for the 3 Locust Destroyers, coming to a total of exactly $250. Now, I will add that if you don't want to get the 10 Necron Warriors and the 3 Scarab Swarms by themselves, you could pick up an extra Recruit edition that'll give you some more Space Marines, another Royal Warden, as well as these Warriors for less than the $77 here. That is completely up to you if you choose to do that. I am not listing it here for this option because you've already picked one of those up, but that is another option. If you wanted to get more value for money, for spending that much money for getting the 10 Warriors and 3 Scarab Swarms, you get more miniatures for spending less than just that single box. Completely up to you. Depending on how you build the Ghost Ark and Doomsday Ark kit, you can actually get to a maximum of 455 points with this option. There are a couple of pros for this option that I see that are really good. So it builds on adding some heavier firepower in the Doomsday Ark if you build the Doomsday Ark out of the Doomsday Ark Ghost Ark box set, and the Locust Destroyers, giving you some ranged firepower and some heavier firepower in that, with the stronger, more heavier anti-infantry, anti-light vehicle weaponry that the Destroyers have, and the heavy anti-tank gun of the Doomsday Ark. The extra 10 Warriors will also allow you to build a legal battalion out of everything that you own currently so far, if you did pick this option. If you went with the Recruit box, you've also got that additional HQ, so you've got 2 Royal Wardens and an Overlord, so you've got 3 HQs to fill out your 3 HQ slots in that battalion detachment. However, there are a few cons to this option. Other than the Warriors and the Scarab Swarms, the rest are all standard kits, meaning that they might be a bit more challenging to build compared to the Warriors and the HQs that you've already built out of the Recruit and the Elite editions. And they might take a bit more time to build them, and it can be a bit more challenging and daunting for you as well, so always follow those instructions. Now, this option will still have some limited close combat units due to only having the Scorpec Destroyers and the Overlord, because this option primarily just adds heavier firepower to this option in general. Now, when you add this additional kit onto the Recruit and the Elite editions, 615 points, you actually get up to a total of 1,070 points to be able to use for your game. So that means that you could drop some Scarab Swarms and be able to get to 1,000 points pretty easily. Cost-wise, when you're looking to grab the Recruit and the Elite editions, as well as these additional options to build onto that, it comes to a total of $435, which is the cheapest option out of the 3 options that you have for starting your Necron army. Now, overall, if you're wanting to build models for your Necron army in more of a horde style, using a lot of warriors and a lot more foot troops with some firepower support, with the cheapest cost of entry for building up your Necron army, then this is probably the option you want to go with. However, we have still got that third option, which builds off of the instead of option number 2, and these are the next steps for it. So for this option, I've picked 4 different kits to best complement the array of initial 4 kits that we had in option number 3 to continue to build up your collection in the same vein. And these kits are 2 boxes of 5 Immortal / Death Marks, a box of 5 Lich Guard / Triac Praetorians, and again, the Tarn Shard of the Nightbringer. Because who doesn't want the Nightbringer in the Necron list? He's an absolute beast. In my opinion, at least. The cost of each of these kits comes to $61 for each box of 5 Immortals/Deathmarks, $66 for the 5 Lychguard/Triarch Praetorian box, and $62 for the Satan Shard of the Nightbringer, coming to a total again on $250 on the nose. Now, depending on how you assemble the Immortals/Deathmark kit and the Lychguard/Triarch Praetorian kit, the option could add a maximum of 605 points to your existing forces. For this option, it's got a couple of pros to go for it. These kits all come with a solid focus between a mix of close combat and shooting units, allowing you to take more of a balanced force rather than tilting one side towards more shooting or one side towards more close combat, for example. Now, if you build the 2 Immortal/Deathmark kits as 2 units of 5 Immortals, you'll be able to actually legally build a battalion detachment, whether you include the Necron Overlord in a Catacomb Command Barge or on foot with the Annihilation Barge. But bear in mind how many points you have, because both of those options, you'll get more points by taking the Overlord separately to the Annihilation Barge rather than just taking the Catacomb Command Barge. Bear that in mind. However, there are a few cons to this option as well. When combined with the starting the army option, this actually is the most expensive option to start off with. Just hands down out of any of these 3 options. So if you're wanting to save a bit more money when you're starting off, maybe try one of the other 2 options. Unless you've already got some other Warhammer 40k armies and this is a new army for you, then maybe this better suits what you're trying to do with your Necrons. And once again, as we've previously mentioned with the 3rd option in the starting the army video, all of these kits are standard miniature kits, which means there's a lot more options, and you're gonna make sure to follow those instructions in the kits on how to build them and the way you want to build them, so that you aren't too confused or you don't misplace pieces or you don't mismatch pieces as well, because it can be quite daunting when you've got a high array of parts to go together for multiple miniatures. Now, this option added on to the kits in the instead of option 2 for starting the armies, 490 points, does come to 1,095 points total to be able to use for your incursion level games. Cost wise, as I have already mentioned, combined these 4 kits with the starting the armies 4 kits does come to a total of $498, just shy of that $500 mark that we are aiming for. Now, overall, I do still believe that this is a great starting force and gives you a well-rounded Necron force, being balanced between both shooting and close combat despite its entry cost, and being able to utilize different Necron units for different roles in your army. Now, out of each of these 3 options, if I were to start my Necron army from scratch compared to where I did 18 months to 2 years ago now, I would actually probably be picking the first option, going with the Combat Patrol, because it adds a variety of units whilst also being quite balanced in of itself for both shooting and close combat when you add those next step options onto that Combat Patrol. However, that being said, that all 3 of them are great starting options depending on what you're wanting to focus on. And that's going to be it for the Necron The Next Steps video, ladies and gentlemen. Alrighty everyone, well, I hope that I've been able to give you a nice clear explanation of the Necrons, from their lore, from their core rules, the pros and cons of playing them and collecting them, as well as the ways that you can start the army. And this is the last video in this series that we will be focusing on the Necrons, and I hope that I've given you a nice overall look at them as well. Now, if you do have any feedback or any other suggestions of different kits or swapping out for different options, feel free to let me know down in the comments section below. And if you haven't already, feel free to hit that subscribe button and like the video. Make sure that notification bell is on, because we're going to be jumping into the next faction in this series shortly, and I'm sure you're going to be keen to see which one it is. It's one of my personal favorites, just as a bit of a hint. But if you do have any other questions you don't want to ask here on YouTube, that's okay. Feel free to come and find me when I'm live on Twitch every Tuesday and Friday night and Saturday afternoon, Australian Eastern Standard Time, where we do hobby sessions, we do live games and tournament coverage, and I'll be happy to answer your questions there as well. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this segment of the For the New Guy series, and I'll catch you in the next video where we start off that next faction.